I'm Sonya Maya, and I'm here to talk about the importance of fantasies and some details about fetishes, because I posted about that in the past, seemed to like it, so here we go again with some updated research. Small update to those who have been subs for a while or followers on other platforms. I did just graduate yesterday with my doctorate in clinical psychology, so definitely in celebration mode. That's why there's awkwardly just like one of those graduation caps on my bed. Today I got a lot of uncomfortable attention from strangers, but most of it was comfortable. Some of it, not so much. Still have to finish my internship, which ends next month in June. So technically I can't really call myself doctor until like July or August. So that's strange, but you know what? We're a few weeks away. I'm not gonna sweat it. Let's talk about sexual fantasies, you know? I think most of us are aware that a lot of us have different preferences when it comes to sex and what makes us aroused, right? And some of the time, they can be kind of taboo, not of the ordinary, which is nothing wrong with that, and I'm gonna get into that a little bit more. Let's talk about the psychology behind fantasy. Research shows that those who have sexual fantasies and are able to express them are less likely to have anxiety symptoms and more likely to have better overall self-esteem. As I've said many, many times, the brain is the most important sexual organ, and I have a brain on my nail right now. It is the brain from Pillow Talking, Little Dicky music video reference, but it says Doc in Psych, and he's wearing the same cap that you see awkwardly on my bed. So yes. Recent research has shown that is still the case, okay? Pleasure is 90% in your head. So if you are not in the moment, if you're thinking about, you know, something you have anxiety about, if you're thinking, oh, I'm taking too long to finish, if your partner's pressuring you to finish, are you almost there? They shouldn't do that. It is 90% in your head, so you are not going to get to that big O. That is, if that's what you desire, because sometimes people are just, you know, trying to get that pleasure, right? You're not gonna get there if you're distracted. You have to fully let go. You have to fully let go that tension to have that O, which rhymes like that. Arousal starts with fantasy and imagination. So if your head isn't in the game, then you're not going to come. You know what I'm trying to say. According to recent studies, approximately 70% of us fantasize about roughness, so like being dominated, eh? A lot of people are also into BDSM, which stands for this: bondage, discipline, sadism, masochism. There's some other kind of switch-arounds there, so here's all the definitions. Multiple partnered sex is a very common fantasy, especially among men. Men are more likely to state that they have a fantasy about having multiple partners that are anonymous. For women, fantasies are mostly, you know, on average, about celebrities, you know, having some, you know, thing with Brad Pitt, you know what I'm saying? Johnny Depp, you know what I'm saying? And also with same-sex partners, which I find interesting, because, yeah, I can relate to that one. It's very normal and very recommended by sex therapists and therapists that are, you know, properly studying sex, not enough of them, but that you discuss and explore fantasies with your partner. This doesn't mean you need to act on them, but just the actual act of talking about the fantasy with your partner, you're more likely to have a better relationship and sexual satisfaction. Ari Tuckman talks about this in a Psychology Today article. He talks about how you're more likely to be satisfied in bed and in your relationship when you're more comfortable sharing your fantasies. Being vulnerable and sharing those desires can increase intimacy. To me, I see. You see what I did there? Yeah, I've done a lot of other research that matches this. I talked about it in my dissertation. All right, now let's talk about fetishes, all right? I know we're all kind of interested in this. If we don't have a fetish or we aren't really sure what it means, we might be like, oh, what is that? It's very taboo. However, there's nothing to be ashamed about, and I'm gonna get into that. Unless it's like something that is actually causing harm to another person, there's nothing to be ashamed about. According to a fetish survey of over 2,300 Brits, 70% of people reported that they have at least one fetish. According to the same study, 74% stated that they were into BDSM and 46% stated that they have a fetish for uniforms. BDSM stands for bondage, discipline, dominant submission, sadism, masochism. And it's not always what you think. BDSM can be more of a kink than a fetish sometimes. It's really important to make the distinction between kinks and fetishes, okay? So one way to think about it that kind of helps is that all fetishes are kinks, but not all kinks are fetishes. Let me explain. A kink is something that you have an interest in that might be taboo or non-normative. Kinks are a preference You know, they're not required for like the big O and the pleasure, and they are not always sexual. And fetishes, they're pretty much always sexual in nature. A fetish is defined as a sexual fixation on a non-genital body part or an inanimate object. It can be a healthy part of somebody's life, okay? It really can. And if you are feeling some type of way about having a fetish, you're feeling shame, you're feeling guilt, you know, maybe you're worried that it's going to impact the life of others, go to a sex therapist, talk to a therapist, get that help. But a lot of the time you can live with the fetish and live a happy life, non-shamefully. Studies show that they are more common in cisgender men compared to cisgender women. It's important to also distinguish that there's a difference between fetishes and paraphilias. So paraphilias are abnormal fetishes, and those are still in the DSM, which is the Diagnostical Manual of Disorders. I use it all the time as a psychologist in training, but you know, I will officially be a psychologist when I get licensed. But anyway, long story, I use the DSM a lot to diagnose patients and help me conceptualize and for billing purposes and yada yada. DSM is helpful. The DSM has let us out in the past. For example, there was a time that homosexuality was in the DSM as a paraphilia, which was a no-no, terrible, awful. I'm really sad that that actually happened. So we need to kind of take things with a grain of salt sometimes, depending on the context. In order to have a paraphilia, according to the DSM, there must be recurrent sexual arousal for a period of 6 months or more. And it must cause some kind of disruption in your functioning. But as I said before, fetish does not mean that there's always a disruption to your functioning. You can go on with your life, have a fetish, everything's fine. What is the most common fetish? It is still feet. Are you surprised? Feet and toes. And I did talk about this in my last video, but I'm gonna talk about it again, like what's behind that. It's almost like, it makes me think of Big Mouth too. Like when I'm thinking about Big Mouth and the hormone monster. Is the hormone monster responsible? But that's cartoon fiction. If you had a fetish that you wanted to grant to the most people, what would it be? Yeah, gotta be toes and feet. Just gotta be toes and feet. But why toes? I'm putting my foot down on this. It is way too entertaining. And people are making money off of this. You make a good point. I know. Are you pointing your toes at me? Yes, $500. Let's talk about actual evidence-based research. I've shown this before. This is the S1 Touch Brain Map. So according to your brain, your toes and feet are pretty much the girl next door to your genitals. Hey there. Hey, top of the morning to you. Oh, how embarrassing. It's fine. Happens all the time, actually 2/3 of the time. Would you like a pedicure? Yes, I do. Basically, the neurons that detect touch for toes and feet are very close to the neurons that detect genital stimulation. And some neuroscientists theorize that that overlap might be why there's so many toes and foot fetishes. And interestingly, apparently according to evolutionary psychologists, they hypothesize that the foot fetish and toe fetish has been actually like evolutionarily helpful because it motivates people to keep their feet clean in terms of hygiene. Because like, you know, if I keep my feet clean, then maybe people will touch them and massage them, and yeah. But I feel like that's more so for like the receiving end of that. But it's like, okay, so evolutionarily people are going to be attracted to feet, and that'll therefore cause other people to be more hygienic. I mean, I have a lot of questions. Let me know what you think about this. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it more, people do keep their feet clean evolutionarily. Maybe that's helpful, but for financial purposes, you know, like there's a thing called Foot Finder. Apparently you need to, you know, pay to be a foot model on there. But yeah, people are making money off of these things. Researchers state that those with axillism, I never know if I'm saying that right, which is the armpit fetish, they say that some people kind of like, the brain sometimes confuses armpits for genitals because of like the secretions, which is kind of like a gross word to use, so because of the pheromones that get released from your armpits. So basically the armpit smell gets one turned on because of the significance of the amount of pheromones that get released from the armpit. And what are pheromones, do you ask? So a pheromone is a chemical that an animal produces that changes the behavior of another animal of the same species. And in this case, the behavior would be smelling under pits. That's why your brain might think that it's genitals. Yeah. Thanks, brain. The pheromones are found in your bodily secretions, mainly sweat, and as per a study, armpit sweat contains a specific type of pheromone called androstenedione that improves mood when smelled or licked. So A few like to lick armpits to get turned on. Deodorant stokes for different folks, I guess. That was bad, I'm sorry. All right, that was the last corny joke, I promise. So let me know below, do you have a fetish that you'd be willing to share? I'm hoping that this didn't make anyone feel shamed, because I've noticed in a lot of the comments, people tend to feel a little touchy about this if it's something they resonate with. I try to do my best to let people know I really am not judging. As long as you're not harming anyone, I don't care, do you. I'm a sex therapist in training now. I have to do my best to be open-minded to diverse sexual desires. And do you think it's important to discuss fantasies? Because I think that, you know, they are intertwined topics that are really important in my opinion. So please do hit that subscribe if you like content like this. Send me a like. I'm gonna be making more videos soon to my best ability and trying to up my editing quality. And let me know, do you like the little skits in between? I like to think that I'm good at that. You know, I've done pretty good with it on TikTok, but you know, even if I'm not good at it, like the little, like, you know, I'm playing different characters in between, you know, you gotta keep doing something to get better at it, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know what you were saying. You don't have to keep asking.
So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.